Hey there, y'all. This is Jack, and today we're discussing My Hero Academia, chapter 409, Quirk Explosion. Oh, okay. Disclaimer: not including the crap, the Bakugo having such thick plot armor. It's insane. We're just gonna rate this chapter and view this chapter as is, which honestly, there's a lot I liked about this chapter, actually quite a bit. But there's obviously still has some problems. All right, so let's just dive right into the review, shall we? All right, the first page we actually get Bakugo's birth, which is actually a pretty good moment. I actually do like that. We see Bakugo as a baby, and the mother and father, holding him. And thank goodness he didn't have his explosion at birth, because holy freak, that could have gone dodgy. But then yeah, we cut to Bakugo early, my hero, saying to Bakugo, "I'm gonna make all my skills my own and keep rising. My explosion can pull off anything I want to. Izuku, I'll no longer get in your way." As we cut to All For One turning into this massive blob from the last chapter, about to make a massive explosion, but Bakugo is getting ready to set off a massive explosion towards All For One, which is like, okay. But All For One immediately, we cut to this double spread, actually pretty good looking, as we get All Might just shouting, "Dodge it, young Bakugo." And All For One immediately starts propelling himself, destroying buildings right under him as he's heading right towards Bakugo, essentially just to crush him. Because All For One just wants to destroy Bakugo, but Bakugo is bracing himself as he thinks to himself, "Please explode." And then Bakugo just shouts, "Explode!" And massive explosion shoots right towards All For One, and the inside of his face explodes. Like his mouth explodes, and good chunk of his right face blows off as he's thinking to himself, thinking, "What?" But he's still so far away. I don't understand what in the world's going on. As he continues to try hurling towards Bakugo, but he comes crashing down onto the ground, and Bakugo immediately capitalizes on this opening and charges right at All For One, as he says, "My explosions get weaker in the rain, but adding a coating, I can send them off. I covered my explosion sweat drops in regular sweat drops so they don't activate them. After some time, they eventually mix together and explode from outside stimulus." So pretty clever on Bakugo that his sweat mixes with the rainwater, and thus he could save him up until he wants to actually set him off and create a massive explosion. Very good on Bakugo's part, I gotta say. As even all for one interesting stuff at that time, he shot them in my mouth. How fast was that when Bakugo just immediately just shot himself right towards All For One when he first entered this fight against All For One, and when he essentially just blew off parts of All For One, he sent some of his sweat into All For One, which is crazy, I gotta say. But all right, not bad. That's like the part I'm like, okay, but all right. And All For One just says, "People have always said that I'm pretty clever. I only ever needed one quirk." And as he just continues to just head right towards All For One, and All For One just thinking to himself, "My power's disarray from all the damage, but I can do one more shot. This is my story. Move out, you side character!" As he just shouts, as he begins to try to create another attack right at Bakugo, but it just doesn't work as Bakugo closes in and uses Hauser's impact right at All For One, point blank. But Bakugo does receive some damage as he just begins to just start blasting at All For One point blank, and All For One just tries to send out attacks at Bakugo, shouting, "You fool!" And Bakugo just replies saying, "Shut up!" as he continues to blast and blast and blast All For One into oblivion, as he just says, "I've had enough of your mouth." And then we get All For One being by himself, just thinking to himself, "How odd! I'm unable to mix quirk factors together. That's not that. That's not the explosions doing. It's because my body's becoming young and frail." Then he turns around and sees Hawk, as Hawk says, "As you banish negative emotions, you controls weakens. That's why I was able to hold this fast fan meeting of mine. Shigaraki was your downfall." As we see all the quirks All For One has stole are moving towards Hawk. So we all know that All For One stole Hawk's quirk. And with that, all the Quirks are leaving All for One and heading to Hawks. Yeah, okay, we'll talk about that later. As yes, they're abandoning All for One and they're heading towards Hawk because All for One is using negative emotions that's just repelling them, and they're all being drawn to Hawks. And then Bakugo continues, as he says, "This is our story." As he just lands one massive explosion towards All for One, sending him hurling towards the ground. As he thinks to himself, little by little, all the damage dealt by everyone. Finally, now once and for all. There's no way I could have won this alone. I love that part. I love the part where everyone working together against All for One, all the one from the heroes of that are fighting from Hawks and the UA students to All Might and all the way to Bakugo here, all of them coming together to fight All for One and beating him. Like it took all of them to come together to beat All for One. Like I like that. But again, it comes to the part where Bakugo learned his power not too long ago. Like, even if you just said, okay, what about this chapter though? It seems insane from what Bakugo just so much. He's just completely overpowering this mass ball of hatred and energy that's destroying a city underneath him, and Bakugo setting off nitroglycerin sweat in his mouth. Like, that's good in concept, but I don't believe it. When All for One's body got annihilated and he was regenerating, the nitroglycerin shouldn't be in his mouth still. But I do like the part where Bakugo's actually just going ham on him after he unlocked, an incredible part of his body fighting Shigaraki, which was good, but then Shigaraki with the heart thing. But in this fight, Bakugo, like in this point where with a weakened All for One, where his powers are in disarray and they're not working correctly, and Bakugo just coming in and just finishing him off. Like I like it. It doesn't have to be All for One or All Might to be able to finish off All for One. It doesn't have to be the way this is written here. I like it. It doesn't have to be All Might and Bakugo coming in and finishing the job. I like a lot, but the substance around it is like the thread itself, like the pieces. Fine, the thread, no, they don't hold up. They really don't hold up to scrutiny. But again, there's some good stuff in this chapter I actually genuinely liked, and I was like, oh wow, like I was like really good, like glad to read this because the other past few chapters, nah, they've been bad. But this chapter, I was like, oh okay, so I'm gonna give this chapter 5 out of 10. I liked it. I liked some of the themes here and some of the things that they added. With like Bakugo, just using his newfound power to beat All for One, and All for One being in disarray. He's not in the right mindset, and the quirks within All for One are still like rebelling ish, but it's odd that it's Hawks because if anyone that's ever it should ever be a substitute uh that would disarray his his inner quirks would be Stars and Stripes and off One for All. Hawks, like I get it. Kirikoshi was going for more meta, like to actually see actual vision of the quirks abandoning him, but I don't think that really works if Stars and Stripes quirk wasn't the one doing it, or possibly One for All. But yeah, that's just me though. 5 out of 10 chapter. My hero. Yeah, I mean, I still like my hero. The pieces are good, but the threads not so much. So yeah, that concludes my review. If you like this kind of content, please consider subscribing. I greatly appreciate it. And anyways, you guys have a great day and take care. Later.